Welcome, everyone. The Sports Writers Podcast is here. We have our Thanksgiving edition here. Phil Stacey is here, Matt Williams and Nick Giannino, all from the Salem News. And we're here to talk some Thanksgiving football here, preview some of the games, get some insight from these experts right here in front of you here. So let's get right to it. Gentlemen, first up, happy Thanksgiving to you all. And looks like it's going to be a good holiday this weekend if we can get through the rain on Wednesday and so on. But Phil Stacey, let's begin with Beverly Salem, the game at Beverly this year at Herd Stadium, game number 125.
Yes.
Wow, I thought I had seen a lot of these games over the years, but not so many, I guess.
When you put in perspective, no.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot going on in this game. You have, as you mentioned, it's the 125th meeting between these two, longest in North Shore history, dating back to 1891. Beverly still with a pretty comfortable lead in the series now. I think it's greater than it's ever been on one side or the other. I want to say off the top of my head, 64, 53, and 7 ties over the years. Salem, which is a huge favorite, has not beaten Beverly back-to-back seasons. They beat them last year, obviously, but they have not beaten Beverly in back-to-back seasons in more than 2 decades. So a lot for them to play for. They do have the Super Bowl coming up against Fairhaven at Gillette Stadium a week from this Thursday. And, whenever you have a situation like this, you do wonder, does a team rest its starters? Do they only play a half? Do they, lay off the gas and apply more of the brake? Do you work more seniors in that you wouldn't normally see a lot of action? All these myriad of different things. I'm not so sure any of that applies this Thursday. I think Salem not only wants to win, I think Salem wants to win big. They've been beaten badly by Beverly many times over the last 20 years. And they stuck it to Beverly last year. I'm sure this senior class would love to do so again. I'm not saying they're going to be on the field with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter of a blowout, but I do think, they're not going to be pulled from this game anytime soon to rest up for next week's game at Gillette. They're going to play this as a normal game. As I said, they are big favorites. I mean, hey, Salem is 9-2, and their 2 losses were by 1 point each. So they're 2 plays away from being undefeated. I tweeted out something last week that it's just been remarkable how far Salem has come since their last Super Bowl. They've had some really down years. They've been more than 100 games under 500 in a 21-year span up until 2022. So what this group of players, the senior class, and now like some of the juniors and sophomores have been able to do has really been remarkable. Now, what do you do if you're Beverly? They're 1-9. Their only win came their last time out, non-playoff game against Waltham. Everyone thinks that they're going to not only lose, but probably lose badly. It's just been a tough year. They've had a tough time moving the ball offensively, although it's been better lately. They've had a tough time stopping teams. Injuries have decimated the product. So what do you do? I mean, if you're Beverly, you got nothing to lose. Honestly, I mean, you can throw the kitchen sink at them. You could try every trick play that you've practiced, double, triple reverses, Statue of Liberty play, hook and lateral, whatever you want to do, reverses on kick returns, anything like that. You're not expected to win. No one is thinking that you're going to hang with Salem. So leave it all out there. Do what you can and play hard. I think the biggest thing, I was talking with somebody about this recently, I think especially for seniors that are going to be playing in their last game, and this doesn't apply to Beverly, but any team that's an underdog on Thanksgiving, this is it. This is the last 48 minutes you're going to play, and you should really go hard every single play, no matter what the score is, because you're going to remember what the final score is of when you played on Thanksgiving. But you're also going to remember, like, yeah, we were losing by 3 touchdowns, but I totally pancaked, my guy in the fourth quarter, or, I made a big open field tackle, or, whatever. I crunched somebody on a kickoff return and, that freed my guy up to do whatever. I mean, you got to have you're playing for the team, but you also got to play that self-pride. I'm hitting myself in the chest here. to say like, you might be beating me, but I'm going to punch you in the mouth metaphorically along the way. So for any team that falls behind on Thanksgiving, keep going hard. Don't pack it in. Don't give up. This is it. This is the last time you're going to do this. And I have the perspective as an adult, but as a kid, I think it's sometimes difficult to realize like how much you're going to miss it when it's not there, and how much you'll wish like, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done this. Don't have anything that don't have any regrets when you leave the field, or that you're going to be feeling 10, 20, 30 years from now. Leave it all on the field, do what you can, and play your best.
Bill, nice pep talk for all the youngsters out there, the high schoolers out there. Man, they're going to charge out on the field and yell Stacy, on Thanksgiving morning.
I'm going to say that would be a not great formula to win, but take from it what you will.
Yeah, when the chants of Stacy roll through the stadiums on Thanksgiving morning, well, this is where it started, right here, folks.
I think if I heard chants of Stacy, I would probably expect burning torches and pitchforks to be followed. So I would be, out of there.
All right. I'll just jump over as you talk about Super Bowl teams, and you talk about, and in the past we have had teams on Thanksgiving that are not, that rest their starters, if you will, because they have a playoff game coming up. I think sometimes that's because they had a short week either way on either side of that. Having said that, though, I talked to St. John's Prep football coach, and speaking of, having a Thanksgiving game, a big one, he is not resting his starters on Thanksgiving Day.
Brian St. Pierre, right.
Brian St. Pierre, right.
Yep.
When they play at Zavarian. So they're playing Zavarian on Thanksgiving, and as everybody knows, they're playing them on Wednesday night at Gillette Stadium for the D1 Super Bowl. So any thoughts on the Prep Zavarian matchups, plural, if you will?
Yeah, to borrow a phrase from someone, a very learned football person who's in the know, these two teams slugging it out for 8 quarters of football over a 7-day span. I mean, you could be looking at, might look like the scene at Normandy Beach in France, June 1945, when it's over. I mean, these are two teams that play really tough physical football. And if they're not holding back on Thanksgiving morning, there could be some really sore bodies lining up at Gillette a week later. But I think, I can't speak for Zavarian, but for St. John's, this is the mindset that they have. It's like, we want to be tough. We want to be physical. We want to punch you in the mouth. We want to come right at you. We're not hiding anything. You know what's coming, and we're still going to find a way to beat you. It wouldn't make any sense at all to deviate from that just because they have a Super Bowl game the following week, and it just so happens to be against the same opponent. I mean, it's against everything in the program's DNA to flip the switch and try something that they haven't done all year and soft shoe it. They're not about to do that. So, yeah, I do expect them to just go right at it, play the best they can, and, see what happens. Now, does that mean that, say, like a Cam LaGrasser is going to get 25 carries? Maybe not. Maybe he gets 15 instead of 25. Maybe they do mix in a few more guys as far as running the ball, whatnot. But I still think you're going to see the same starters, up front, the Wells Gillettes, the Alex Ciancia Russos, the Braden Hugheses, those guys. Of course, McSweeney and Harmon at tight end, and Graham Roberts at right tackle. You're going to see all those same guys there. Defensively, they're not going to change much. Matt Callahan, John DeGroat is going to be on defense. The edge guys are going to be the same. The guys in the secondary are going to, they'll work in and out. They'll do their thing. The Alex Barojas, the nose, and the two defensive ends are going to do their thing too. So, I think one thing they won't do is they won't show everything. Certainly. I mean, why, expose yourself to everything you might potentially want to try at Gillette on Thanksgiving Day. So maybe the playbook won't be as vast. Not that it's, I wouldn't say it's super diversified is not the right word, but it's basically simple. They mix in smart passes with a strong ground game. They'll continue to do that. They're just not going to give as many looks or options, I would think. And it's bound to be the same thing for Zavarian. They've had some injury issues of their own, I know. whether or not they have some of those guys coming back and playing on Thanksgiving, or they decide to hold them for the Super Bowl, is anybody's guess, I suppose. But the St. John's will head down to Westwood Thursday morning, planning on playing the same game script they always do, and then hoping to come back to 72 Spring Street with a win. And if they don't, for whatever reason, that's all right too. I mean, it might not be what they choose. A loss means they have to share the Catholic Conference title as opposed to win it outright for the first time in Brian St. Pierre's coaching career here. But the season is obviously not over. If they do lose, they'll regroup. They'll get ready for Gillette, but preferably, win number 12 on the season is what they're looking for heading back home.
Yeah, they've got that undefeated string, and as you were mentioning, that hard hitting between those two schools, I'm already running for the Advil, or the ibuprofen, I guess it is. But
no, seriously, it's a real thing. Yeah.
All right, Matt and Nick. Matt, why don't you weigh in and go anywhere you want with this?
Well, I think with St. John's, it really depends on the game script. I mean, I think we saw many games in September when Cam LaGrassa didn't carry the ball too many times. I think he could have carried the ball more times in the regular season game against BC High. So they manage things for this time of year and to keep the guys ready. They did a similar thing with Carson Brown last year, and he carried the ball 30 odd times against Averian, and then another 25 odd times in the Super Bowl against Springfield. So that could be why they managed the early part of the season the way they do. But I also
with the caveat though that there was 3 extra days between Thanksgiving and their Super Bowl last year, where they played on the Saturday following a week plus following Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah. And there'll be a lot of ice baths, but at the same time, we're not talking about, teams that have 30 guys on the roster either. Both of these programs, I believe, are in excess of 100 bodies. So I think they're going to be okay. I do push back a little bit on the notion that, poor them, they have 6 days. Like they've got, one of the reasons they probably did that is because, you guys have so many guys that not everybody's going to be allowed on the sidelines at Gillette. So, you will survive. Having said that, again, the starters, they're going to be in the ice bath. But, again, both of these teams have strength and conditioning coaches and people that handle these sorts of things whose job it is to massage and, do all the stuff at the wellness center and this and that. So I think of all the Super Bowl teams, if anyone is prepared to handle this sort of workload, it is definitely these two teams. They're smart, they're well coached, they're modern. They know how to heal the body and recover and get through this stuff.
Nick Giannino, you can go anywhere you want with this. Any game?
I think from a Zavarian perspective, not that we have the inside scoop with them, and obviously we you spoke with Brian. It seems pretty obvious for St. John's Prep that they're gonna give it their all and really want to win this one and put the starters out there to begin the game and all that. But I think for Zavarian, playing at home, that's a big thing too, especially for those seniors. That's their last home game, so they're going to want to win that game just as much. And like Phil alluded to with the Catholic Conference title, that's something that Zavarian has the opportunity to come in and not steal, but at least share it if they come up with a win there. And I think too what this game will do from a confidence perspective, for each side, the winner is going to feel pretty good about themselves going into the Super Bowl. And I think the loser is going to say, what can we do differently? What can we do better? And I don't know. I think, personally, I'd rather be on the winning side of the Thanksgiving matchup going into the Super Bowl 6-7 days later. But that's just me. So I expect Zavarian to give it their all, just like the Prep.
Too, so many times, these rematches, right? Like, don't always go the way that we think they're going to go. The Patriots and the Giants comes to mind right away. Brockton and St. John's in 1992 comes to mind right away. Wasn't there a BCS national championship that was a rematch where the team that lost in the regular season won the championship too? I mean, so I think
a couple of those, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't put, as far as the Super Bowl itself goes, I'm not sure how much what happens on Thursday is going to necessarily influence that. There's so many examples in history of teams that, lost the first game and come back to win the ring and vice versa. So, I think whatever whatever of those shoes ends up on your feet after the first game, there's going to be plenty of rallying cries and things you can point to say, that the Super Bowl is still certainly well within reach, and should be one of the best games on the slate at Gillette. Looks like a great bunch of games too. I mean, most of the matchups are pretty intriguing with some pretty good teams, so it should be a great 3 days of football there. But I don't think that I don't think either of these teams are going to be demoralized or pack it in or be worrying about it. I think like as soon as the last bit of stuffing is cleaned off the plate on Thursday, as Brian St. Pierre always says, they're going to be on to the next, and that's the same thing's true for Zavarian, I think.
I like the fact that, in both of these games we've talked about, Beverly Salem and Prep Zavarian, the two teams that are moving on to Super Bowls, both their head coaches, and that includes Matt Bouchard of Salem, are purists, and they understand the importance of Thanksgiving football at a time when, it feels like in a lot of cases it's really been sliced up, to use a pun, a turkey pun here, in terms of like how maybe it's viewed in terms of importance or whatnot. These guys still believe it means a whole lot to win on Thanksgiving, and they'll both have their teams ready to play that way.
All right, I want to jump to a couple of things because we're going to touch on a few more games, but I want to have you guys react. Some of you, I know, Phil, I think you've seen a lot of Danvers this year, but Danvers, I think had a great playoff run. They're playing Gloucester on Thanksgiving. They lost to Hanover by just 3 points in the state semifinal game. Gloucester also actually lost to Hanover in their opening round of the D5 playoffs earlier this year. But what a run for Danvers High School in the postseason this year, losing narrowly to that number 1 seeded team last Saturday. And they're hosting, again, Gloucester on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Willie, you want to pick up on it where you watched them against Hanover, and then I'll jump in after that?
Oh, just a super impressive day by Danvers. I mean, I think, their assistant coaches, Brian Ibbotson and Kevin Fassett, just did a phenomenal job of calling the offense. You watch the game from 10,000 feet and it's like, oh, Gazanowski. It looks like it's the same. You got, some of the players from other sports in the stands crying for more passes, worried about how vanilla it looks. But then when you watch it up close, the way that they mixed in inside runs, outside runs, traps, counters, quarterback draws, and then timing that play action pass. I thought it was just a masterful game script. I thought they did a phenomenal job and really kept Hanover off balance, controlled the game. Hanover returns the opening kick for a touchdown, and you're thinking, here we go. We're in deep trouble. This game could be a runaway. And Danvers ends up taking the lead 3 or 4 times, had the lead with 9 minutes left in the game, gave it up quickly, had the ball, had a 4th and inches opportunity to convert, didn't get it, didn't see the ball again. But just the way that their offense has improved, the way that they've been able to find those plays that work and be unpredictable, even though, again, to the untrained eye, it might all look the same. I've been really impressed with their progress. I think that this is a really good Gloucester team that they're playing. I've been impressed with their progress too. The loss to Revere notwithstanding, I got a chance to see them play Peabody. I thought they played really well. I watched a little bit on tape of their game against Beverly. I thought they played really well. Again, the Revere game, a little bit of a letdown, Thursday night, strange circumstance, whatever. You flush that one and you try to, go get Danvers. I mean, this is a team that really wants to beat Danvers, and Danvers is going to have to rise to that occasion, just a couple of days after, losing the Super Bowl at the last second. That could be difficult. So I think this could be a sneaky, really interesting game. I think these two offenses over the course of the season, in other words, how far they've come from September to Thanksgiving Day, I would say these might be the 2 most improved offenses on the North Shore. They've both really gotten better, really found things that worked within their systems and formations, and expanded the playbook, and just they're both playing much, much better on offense now than they were back in September. And that could make for a really interesting, really good game.
I know
even late October. I mean, I was at the game they lost to Marblehead, that Marblehead was able to sneak in the playoffs with. And what did Danvers have? 7 points in that one? I think they only scored 1.
That was
so to bounce back from a season-ending loss that probably hurt them in the rankings a little bit, and then to win a couple playoff games and go toe to toe with Hanover, yeah, absolutely impressive stuff from them.
Gloucester, 3 of Gloucester's 4 losses this year, they only scored 7 points. I think we would all be in agreement that they're probably going to score more than 7 points on Thursday morning. Having said that,
I mean, Denver's defensively is always as tough as they come too.
yeah. Having said that, I think Gloucester made a great decision. And their hand was forced because of injuries, but when they moved John Gucciardi in under center, he's a great athlete. I feel like he really does a nice job running that offense. He's smart when he throws the ball. He makes good reads. And this is somebody who's not a traditional quarterback, didn't grow up playing the position or whatnot, but, waits for his receivers, been getting good blocking, can run when he needs to. They got some good pieces around him, and Caden Souza and Cameron Whitfeld, Chase Goulart, Brady Patton, guys like this are all kids that can find the end zone and have been there before, know how to get there. So Danvers is favored, no question. But Gloucester's going to give them a fight. This is not going to be that which we've seen in recent years where Danvers has kind of rolled over Gloucester. I think this is going to be a real battle. Gloucester's had that time to rest up. Danvers is coming off of a really short week where they played on Saturday. So this will be an interesting game. No question about that.
Hey, I want to pause while we preview games here for Thanksgiving, and just, Willie, you sent over the list of games this weekend and the favorites and the underdogs, if you will, and it seemed like, okay, this is how it's going to play out. But one of the things I've always remembered about Thanksgiving football is when there are upsets on Thanksgiving Day, and they're always kind of vivid, stunning upsets, if you will, on Thanksgiving from time to time. So I thought I'd throw that one out at you guys. Is there a stunning upset or two that you can think of in Thanksgiving football over the years? I'm thinking we're going to get to the Marblehead Swampscott game maybe in a moment, but that game had them over the years. I mean, you have teams with very few wins going against teams with a lot of wins, and all of a sudden on Thanksgiving, boom, there's the upset right there. So I don't know if one of those teams jump out at you.
I can think of a couple right off the top of my head. My real early years at the newspaper, I think this was 1991, I want to say it was. Ipswich and Hamilton Wenham were playing for the Cape Ann League title, and Hamilton Wenham had the ball with a chance to win it on a last-second field goal. Ipswich blocks the kick. The ball bounces back to Hamilton Wenham's Mike McGowan, who went on to serve as a captain at William & Mary. He was a fantastic player. And he got tackled just short of the goal line trying to run it in after the block kick. So Ipswich wins the game, wins the Cape Ann League title, and went on to win a Super Bowl. So that was a great game there. And then Matt Williams had alluded to this the other day, I think, in a tweet. The 2010 Beverly team, which started 0-5, then won 5 in a row, and under the way the state was set up then, they won the Northeastern Conference. What was it, South at the time, Willie, I want to say, and qualified for the playoffs. They went on to win the Super Bowl, but they got upset by Salem on Thanksgiving Day. That's when right. Malik Van Alstyne had, I think, 300 yards rushing at Herd Stadium that day to beat Beverly. So those two stand out for me, at least games I've been to in person.
Yeah, that was a crazy season. You're right. Very good Beverly team, though, that year. You're right.
Yeah, they finished 7-6. I mean, yeah. It has to be right up there for most losses ever for a Super Bowl team, but they it's called winning the games you had to win. That was it. Kidding. Any game they didn't have to win, they didn't win. Yeah. We don't worry about these.
All right. Willie, anything jump out at you on that front?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, Marblehead and Swampscott. I mean, I think, 2006, Swampscott had won several in a row, I think 5 or 6 in a row, and Marblehead was in the doldrums under the late Doug Chernovich, and pulled off a 6-0 upset on a really muddy day where it was hard to pass. And a lot of the players that were on Marblehead's first Super Bowl team in 2009 were either freshmen or sophomores, and so that was a big one. I think Marblehead upsetting Swampscott to take away their league championship Super Bowl berth there potentially in 2011 which was one of Swampscott's great teams that never got a playoff game, which is kind of crazy to think about that group, the way things are now. So that's a big one. I mean, I think when it comes to Peabody and Saugus, many of the upsets were in the 1970s. There's many puzzling Peabody High teams you look back on in the 60s and 70s that had one loss and one tie that lost to Saugus. And, you hear stories about how Coach Arthur didn't really want to work an extra week, didn't really like that Super Bowl thing. So you wonder if some of those teams, that was part of it. I looked up at the office last night. St. John's is on their 18-game win streak now, and I was trying to figure out, like, well, they've never really had back-to-back winning seasons. Like, what's the longest win streak in St. John's history? And in fact, they did have back-to-back undefeated seasons in 1966 and 67, and so their longest win streak ever is 25 games, 24-0-1, undefeated from 66 to 68. Oddly enough, the team that beat them to end that streak at 25 was Peabody. And that year, Peabody had one loss, and it was to Saugus on Thanksgiving to bring it all around. And that was the year before Peabody went undefeated and won the Class A state title in 69. So there have been a lot of upsets in that series over the years, but most of them were in the Flower Power era there in the 60s and 70s. And the only other one that really comes to mind right away for me is that Danvers upset over Gloucester. I want to say there were two of them. 2002 and 2004. The 0-2 upset that gave Swampscott the NEC title and sent Kyle Beatrice to the Super Bowl, where he, threw for 435 yards and set a state record. And then in 2004, Danvers upsets Gloucester, and they go to the playoffs for the first time ever, with quarterback Chris Small and Coach John Sullivan. So those two come to mind in that series for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. We in our final moments here, and we do have a few minutes left, but I don't know if you want to touch on this year's Marblehead Swampscott game or Saugus Peabody, any of you guys.
I think the Marblehead Swampscott game is a huge one, a very interesting one. I think Marblehead's better at the skill positions, the line, and Swampscott's better at the skill positions. And, that's the same as Prep Xaverian. That's for the league title. If Swampscott wins, it's a three-way championship there with Danvers and Marblehead. So Marblehead needs the win to have the title all to themselves. So there's a lot on the line in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, with the different strengths on both sides, I think overall it lines up pretty evenly, right? That's going to be a great matchup. Could be low scoring, could be high scoring, but I think it's going to be close any way you slice it up.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, Marblehead's played a tough schedule. There's no doubt about that this year. And in hindsight, that win against Danvers just looks bigger and bigger now, right? Because of what you were talking about earlier, Nick, in a way, with what Danvers was not able to do against Marblehead a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Good point.
And I was at that game too.
It's to me, this game is probably the most difficult to pick out of all of our local Thanksgiving games because I think they are fairly evenly balanced. Matt Williams put it well when he said Marblehead probably has the edge in the trenches and Swampscott gets the nod in the skill positions. I mean, hey, if you're Swampscott 10 years in a row of losing these guys, it's got to end at some point. There has to be a hunger there that we just want to do whatever it takes to win. And for Marblehead, it's hugely about pride. It's like, no, we're not going to be the class that has this streak end. You have two really good coaching staffs. It still gets a great crowd between these two border towns. I think it's going to be a fantastic game that will be decided late in the fourth quarter.
I would say too, the streak of winning seasons, right? I mean, Marblehead is 4-5. There's a big difference between 5-5 and 4-6. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but when you look back at history, it is.
All right, guys. Nick, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and Swampscott's already, solidified a winning season, right? They're 6-4, so even with the loss, 6-5, they're in. All
right, I'm going to get to something really important here. And and that is Thanksgiving Day. Phil, I know we've talked about our cuisine we have on Thanksgiving. I remember sharing some cold hot dogs with you at Salem's Bertram Field after the game one day many years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't share the same hot dog, but we each had a couple of nice cold hot dogs on that day. But
They were dying to get rid of those, and we were like, "Yeah, sure."
And we hadn't eaten, and we were good. We were good with that. Yeah, absolutely. But what would your favorite pie be on Thanksgiving? Nick Giannino, I'm going to start with you. What would your favorite pie be? If you had one or two pies, what would they be that you would want to have on Thanksgiving?
I think I lean blueberry. I'm a blueberry pie guy. I like apple. I think pumpkin's somewhere near the bottom for me. And I've been really into the cherry pie lately. That's a good one. I had a slice of cherry pie not too long ago at the Agawam Diner, and I'm hooked. I'm big on the cherry pie, so I picked up a cherry pie and an apple pie. I'm gonna bring it over to the family this Thursday after the football, and probably dabble with a slice of each.
It's kind of late in life to just be learning about cherry pie.
It is. I know. It's a crazy
seriously.
thing, but hey, it's a blessing.
Willie, how about yourself? A favorite pie or two?
Me, I'm not into the fruit pies. I don't really like the fruits, the vegetables in the pie situation. So I would go for the lemon meringue regularly, and then just some sort of like chocolate pudding, like your Boston cream or your chocolate there. Which I usually like chocolate, but in the pie situation with the pudding, that tends to work. So the key lime pie you can't beat too. You can't beat a little mix of the sour in the pie, the lemon meringue or the key lime. That's always a good bet.
Well, right now I'm aligning myself closely with Nick Giannino opposed to your selections there, Matt. But although I do like pumpkin, Nick. Phil, what about you?
Willie, did you say you don't like chocolate?
Not on its own, not normally, but I mean in the pie that's all right. But as far as like cake, ice cream, I prefer the vanillas.
I'm the same way. I agree with that.
I'm with you.
You guys
Phil's shaking his head. No, man, this doesn't. What's going on here?
I'm living in banana land here.
How about a banana pie? What about a banana
cream pie is underrated.
Yeah, that is underrated. Same as a coconut cream pie.
Thanks for sparking the conversation, Phil.
If I'm going with a fruit pie, I would probably go with the apple. I am like you, Nick. I don't like the pumpkin pie too much, but I would say like a chocolate cream pie is really good. Nice little dollop of whipped cream on there, and a tasty beverage to wash it down. That's all right.
So working at the farm, I've become well versed in the apple game too. So, people use different kinds of apples in their apple pies, and I've found that the Cortlands are probably the best.
The Cortlands.
I don't know if you're buying a pie and you're going to see on the label, what kind of apples it has in it, but if you're baking your own, get the Cortlands. Those are the go-to.
I think my wife is a Macintosh girl. That's what we normally have in the pies.
Another popular one. Yeah.
I'm guessing the Granny Smith ones wouldn't be so great.
Nah, a little too tart.
Yeah,
Nick,
Cortland that's a good call.
I think, Nick, your comments sparked something that I remember back recessed in my mind here. I think I've heard of people talking about mixing apples in a pie too, different types of apples to go into a pie. Yeah,
you can do that. So, you get a little different bite here, a little different bite there. I mean, you can tell the difference.
You got to be quite a chef to do that, though. I think
I want to throw out an underrated Thanksgiving food that I like. I like I don't even know what they're cooked in, but they're like boiled onions in like some kind of glaze.
Oh yeah,
that's good stuff there.
That is real good. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, thankfully for my own palate and those of our dinner guests, I do not cook on the holiday, so it's edible. That's my wife and my mother-in-law. They do all that stuff. I mean, I'm just a working slob on Thanksgiving that literally shows up to eat and then goes back to work. But those onions are huge, and I feel like not a lot of people go for them because they go for everything else. So I'm like, I'm feasting on these onions, baby.
Yeah, I agree. I like the onions a lot.
Yeah.
So you guys go back to work, so you're able to escape the dishes. Is that what I'm hearing too? Doing the dishes. I mean, it's a nice formula. I like it. But yeah.
You have
to work. You have to earn a living.
I figured out when my kids were younger, like, oh, you know what? Like dinner's over. Instead of doing the dishes now, I'll play with the kids, keep them busy. So that worked out great.
Yeah.
Now my kids are older. They're like, Dad. So I
Do the
just
dishes, Dad.
I just do the same thing with my nephews now. I just, play with them before I got to go back to work. So usually works out good for old Philly.
All right. Well, on that note, you guys have a great Thanksgiving, you and your families, and all the folks at the Salem News. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great holiday, and we will talk again soon.
What about
Thank
you, Bill? What about
Happy
your pie?
Thanksgiving.
Very quickly, I like cherry pie. I like blueberry pie. I do like pumpkin on Thanksgiving. I'm okay with that, but it's got to have whipped cream on it. Definitely got to have whipped cream on it.
Yeah.
But and apple's okay, but the other three I mentioned earlier, I'd go with those first. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Nick.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, you too.